Hello, everyone. My name is Tess Grey. I'm the founder of Youth Haven, and I'm here with Nicholas Rodriguez-Fernandez, and we're going to be doing an interview. This is the first ever Youth Haven interview by Zoom, and I'm very excited. How about you, Nicholas?
I'm super excited. I'm honored. I didn't know I was the first one. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we've recorded interviews in person with our first show, but this is the first time that I myself have done the actual interview, so it's a bit nerve-wracking.
I feel that. Me too.
Yeah.
This is the first formal interview I've had. I'd say so. So
Yeah. Okay, so gotta start off with the first question. What is your name and who are you?
I'm Nicholas Rodriguez-Fernandez. It's a mouthful, so it's like a tongue twister. I'm a singer-songwriter from Miami, Florida.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, and what genre do you play?
So that's what I've been trying to figure out. Like I don't know how to classify music really. Because a lot of it's just me with my acoustic guitar. Like it's not until like real recently that I've gotten my friends to be like, oh yeah, we'll do this stuff with you too. So I guess like folky, singer-songwriter, soft rock, or whatever you want to call it.
That's cool.
Do that kind of stuff, music, yeah.
And so what do you hope to accomplish with your music?
What I hope to accomplish is that people can look at the stories I tell and they could have some sort of connection with them. Either they can relate to it, it could be therapeutic to them, or wherever the case may be, they could find like nuggets of like hope or like how to like lessons with life. I've always heard, with people like Petty or Springsteen or the Beatles, people always say like, oh yeah, this was the soundtrack to my life, or this helped me through a rough time, or this and that, this and that. That's why I've hoped to accomplish. I love like telling these stories, and then I love seeing people come up to me like, hey, that really affected me, or hey, that was really good. Like it got me that impact, which is why I'm really happy I'm like in this little industry, because before I want to make movies for the longest time.
Right.
But for that, you need like a big group of people and a lot of money. And the first time I played an original song, I had people that were like crying. And this was me with a half an hour tuned guitar, singing a key that doesn't even exist. And still, I got that emotion out of someone. I'm like, oh my God, I've succeeded in this thing
Yeah,
already.
because I think that's really something a part of music. It's not exactly what it like sounds like, but it's more of like what you're portraying. Like it's the artist yourself.
Exactly. And that's why like I love all different, like I love uh Bob Dylan and Springsteen and Petty. Like I love like all these people that like sound, it's not the typical like, oh my God, they sing amazingly. Because there's artists that you listen to, I'm like, oh my God, they sound so good. And then but the artists I listen to, I'm like, oh my God, what they're saying is like so impactful. So
Yeah,
I was always a big like songwriter fan, I guess.
yeah. And so, Nicholas, where are you based in?
I'm based in Miami, Florida.
Born and raised?
Born and raised, 305, baby.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I know a lot of musicians come from different places in the world, really. Like, you can be from Cuba, you can be from Venezuela, you can be from Colorado, and it's just
And
very diverse.
and it really is like this music, it's like a universal language, really.
For sure.
I remember this one time I was in a Dolphin Mall, since you're from Miami too, I take it. I was at so I know you know this. I was at Dolphin Mall, and they moved to Sam Ash to another place, but they had like these little acoustic rooms you can go to.
Yeah.
Went there with a buddy of mine, and we're trying out guitars, but there's like someone's playing like super loudly in the room next door. I'm like, why are they playing so loudly? I got so mad. I'm like, I'm gonna go over and check. It was a cute girl, so I decided, let me try talking to her. And the thing, and the thing with Dolphin Mall is like you get, there are always tourists there,
For sure.
and she didn't speak a lick of English.
Oh,
So we gathered certain words and we were able to pinpoint them, but we really didn't start having a conversation until we started playing like Beatles songs to each other. Like I started playing Yesterday, she started playing Blackbird, and 8 Days a Week, and then like another song, then another song, then another song. It just kept going back and forth, like with different songs and genres. We had a conversation through music. I was like, wow, now like that's when it clicked to me, like this is a universal language. Like it does make an impact to a lot of people, regardless of the language you speak. So like I always thought that's so impactful. Like that's awesome, bro.
even hearing that story, it's like, wow, this is a universal language, a universal love language, maybe.
I
But
think That's
It
true.
it's so interesting because you guys play like yesterday, Blackbird. You could like say different things to each other, but with the music. Like yesterday, like, hey, I just lost my girlfriend or something. Blackbird. I don't know what I haven't heard to Blackbird yet. But it could be like, hey, I just lost my girlfriend, and another one like Strawberry Fields, and then another one, and it's like
Yeah, it's
a whole
like oh, go
conversation.
home with my friends and all that stuff. Like yeah, like you start picking up these languages and like it's like oh, like we understood each other without even have to say an actual sentence to each other. Like we knew our life stories by the end of like every song we played. It's like
That's
oh
so
okay,
cool.
like that was always amazing to me because like I said before, I wanted to be a filmmaker and you couldn't really do that with film. You could do this with music, but you couldn't really do that with film, which is why like I fell in love with like the whole song thing. Because
Yeah.
before, like I'm a big person of like, oh, everything happens for a reason.
Hmm.
Every girl, every girl that's liked me or I've dated in the past has always been a musician. Not even because I looked for it, just because it always has been. It's always been the same, like a piano player or like a singer. And I always wondered like, oh, why is that? And then once then my ex-girlfriend, she got me into music again. And I was like so happy she did because they brought me to this place.
Yeah, that's really impactful. So my next question is, when did you start creating music and when?
When did I start creating music and when?
Yeah, like
Or why?
why did you
Okay.
start creating music and when?
Oh, okay. So I think it's the same reason as many guys is because of a girl. I so as I said, my ex-girlfriend, she was a huge music fan. Like she did everything and she loved music. She was a piano player. She played all kinds of instruments and stuff like that. And there's this one movie, it's like 2017, 2016. It's a movie called Ordinary World. It had Billy Joe Armstrong, the lead singer of Green Day. He was on it. And there's this one beautiful scene where he's singing this song called Ordinary World, you know, in the movie, to this other character. And I sent her a video of that saying like, oh my God, I'm gonna find my old guitar. I'm gonna learn how to sing this and learn how to play. I just wanted to know this one song. She said, you can't play and you can't sing, so don't even bother trying. I was raised, yeah, I know.
Oh my god.
She's very brutal. She's very like she wasn't wrong in that sentence, but she wasn't the most uplifting of people. Um, but I was raised Cuban, so you tell me something I can't do, I'm gonna find a way to do it because I'm stubborn like that.
Yeah.
So I started doing it, and I still wasn't like full on board and like whatever. So I started like learning how to play guitar here and there, and then her and I break up. And around this time, I was kind of like very sad and like confused, like who I am and stuff like that, because I'm
Right.
nearing towards the end of high school, and like so much is happening at the same time. Like I don't know what to do. And I was listening to this podcast called Smodcast. The one it has Kevin Smith on, the guy who made Clerks, and he was talking to the Way brothers, Mikey Way and Gerard Way, the guys from My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
And they were talking about the story of their lives and like how they started telling stories through like their songs and like the Black Parade and all that stuff. I was like, you could tell stories through songs. It just for some reason that's when it clicked to me. You can tell stories through songs, and I've always wanted to become a writer. I just always thought I'd be a script writer. So then, without even knowing how to play an instrument, before even knowing how to sing, I wrote an album, just a whole album. I just wrote, not knowing what it takes to write a song. I just wrote words, put them together, and like, hopefully this sounds good. And I'll show it to people. I was like, what do you think of this? And they'll be like, oh, that's really good. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah. I was like, okay. And then my best friend from childhood moved back down to Miami. He's like, I'm learning piano. I'm like, I'm learning guitar. We should do a show together. The show fell apart very quickly. We booked a gig and everything, but he backed out the last second. He's like, I'm not doing that.
Oh.
I'm like, fair, because we didn't know how to. I didn't know how to play chords. I didn't know anything. I was just like, I'll wing it. I didn't know. But once, but then I went to go perform. So that show didn't happen, and then I performed for the first time by myself on open mic night, and it was just like a rush in me. I'm like, oh my God, this is so powerful. Like I like this. I started getting more excited about it little by little. And then I was asked by my old English teacher, who has his own band called Naked Vengeance. He's like, "Do you want to open up with your band?" And I lied because I was like, yeah, I have a band. I'll open up with you guys. So I found like a group of friends that wanted to do like, hey, you want to do like 4 songs? They're like, yeah, sure. I'm like, okay, because we're getting paid. So we're like, they'll do it. So we did the show. I'm like, that's even better. And then I wrote 3 songs and I performed it. And then that's when people were like, oh my God, this really affected me. This was really cool. There was people that were crying. I'm like, oh my God, I succeeded in a month of like what I want to do. I've always wanted to tell stories that people can have an affection to, can relate to, whatever. And I already done that like a month in of like music. I think this is what I want to do.
And were you expecting that type of reaction?
No, I've been I don't want to say I've been raised as a pessimist. I've been kind of become a pessimist just through high school and stuff like that. And people constantly telling me, "Oh, you can't do it. You can't do it." So like obviously, I've always hoped that people will have that reaction, and I always dreamt of it, but I never thought it would happen. But once it did, I was like, "Oh my God!" Like even when I still play those songs sometimes, because I'll play them every once in a while, I still see at least one person have a tear in their face. I'm like that just warms my heart because I'm like,
It
I know I'm
fulfills your soul. Like it's so nice to see that you affected somebody, right?
yeah, like it's like, oh my God, somebody actually listened to the words I said and it connected to them somehow. There's somebody listening. And that means that somebody was helped along the way.
Definitely. How would you describe the music that you make? This goes
Wow.
along with like the genre, but how would you describe like is it I mean you just basically told me that it's emotional, it affects people, but to you, like how do you interpret it?
Wow, that's a good question. I never actually thought about. For me, my music is a part of me, part of who I am. It's a lot of it is the story of my life, and it's kind of like an outlet for me to say the things I never get a chance to say or I'm too scared to say about myself or about like another situation I really couldn't talk about before. Like for example, I just released a song called Future Sends, and in one part of the song, there's a line that says, "I've waited for the future. I've waited long enough. Uh, I don't mind waiting if I'm a little late," or something like that. I don't remember my lyrics right now,
Yeah.
but it was literally just talking about like I see because I see everyone graduating. I see everyone like literally a couple of steps ahead of me, but and people are rushing me. It's like, oh, this person's graduating, that person's graduating. Why aren't you graduating? It's like, well, I see the ending goal. I see the finish line. I don't mind waiting to get to that place. I don't mind waiting to get to that finish line. And so like it's literally like just me having those conversations with myself or telling stories that I couldn't really tell other people. So really it's kind of like a diary and a form of storytelling that I've really come to enjoy. Like I've always said I see myself more as a writer than a musician or a singer first. So for me, a lot of my songs, at least to me, is storytelling.
That's
Or
really that's really cool.
yeah, like that's
Like
why I like it a lot.
you don't really often hear musicians telling you that their stories, well, that their songs are really just their own stories, like their diary.
Yeah, like that's literally it. And like I even put it when I released them, like I released them in a way that like it tells a story in it,
Right.
regardless if you see it or not. So for example, what I do since like I don't have fancy equipment, I don't do any of that stuff. A lot of my songs that I released were recorded on my iPhone, like voice memos, record my iPhone. That's it. So I call it the Raw series. So like each one is like telling like a different story. So the first one I released was like telling the story of like how I became to where I became now. Second one was like talking about like the quarantine with songs that I wrote even before the quarantine even happened.
Yeah.
It's telling kind of like that story of my life without even like telling people, hey, these are the stories of my life. It's just here's what I have to say. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you too can connect with it.
Yeah. I
So
like
like
that a lot.
thank you. Yeah, like I've always loved that. I always loved the idea that like it could be. That's why I took such a strong connection to like people like Petty and Springsteen and Dylan and like George Harrison, where they told these stories through like their music and stuff like that. Like I always found that so interesting. Like, wow, that's so cool. It's like I don't know. I've always been told like you can only tell stories on a stage, like through Broadway or like through a book or through movies. That's it. no more. Because when I grew up, all the songs were like, like Dynamite or like, like dancing songs, stuff like that. That's all I knew. I didn't realize there was another world out there. Like,
It was just like the dance scene and just like, I don't know, like techno and such, and apple
like wave
bottom
your hair.
jeans.
Yeah, boots with the furs, waving your hair back and forth. Like I was like, oh my god, there's actual good stories out there. It's insane. Like I remember I went to go see American Idiot, not on Broadway, but there was like touring, so I saw in the Broward Arts Center, and I was like, oh my god, that's what that means. Because I was so stupid to not realize there's a threshold like connecting the whole thing together. It's like, oh my god, that's ingenious. That's super cool. And before, when I was making movies, I would make playlists. I'm like, okay, this is this scene, this is that scene, that's that scene. I didn't
Yeah.
realize I was making an album. I didn't. That was like it clicked after I got into music. I was like, oh, that's what I was doing.
If music wasn't in the picture, what do you think you would be doing right now?
Like right now, this very moment, or just like in
Like
general.
in general, at this very moment, like if that guitar behind you wasn't there, what would be there?
I'd probably still be in movies if I'm being honest. I would probably still be in movies or trying to write for something else. I've always loved being a writer and I've always loved telling stories, like whether it be through like a stand-up kind of way or whether it be through movies or through acting or whatever the case is. I just love that idea that you get to be a storyteller or you get to be like a poet or something like that. So I still think I'd be a writer. If it wasn't if I wasn't doing music, it'd probably be doing writing for something else. But like honestly, I think this has been my favorite way of telling stories because I also get a chance to play with other people's stories and not get in so much trouble sometimes. Like
Yeah.
I could make a cover and put it up in context with my own stories. And it's just like, oh my God, that's so cool seeing my song next to this song by Green Day, next to that song by Petty, next, so it's kind of like that thing where it's like, oh, okay, cool. So I'd probably be writing still somehow in one way, shape, or form. So
And
sure.
so, um, did you ever try? Well, you did tell me that you tried to pursue film, but was there a point in your life where you really thought, like, wow, film is really for me?
Where I thought film was for me.
Yeah, like where
Yeah.
you thought that film was just something like that was your end path, but then you kind of
Yeah.
moved on to music. Like you had this idea, like you thought it would just be like your
So
forever career, and then you went on to music.
yeah. So for film, from a young age, from the moment I saw like Jaws and Jurassic Park and like those movies, I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do, especially since I had no friends whatsoever in middle school. Like I was the kid that sat right next to the trash cans with a little notebook, writing little stories in there. And so like it was always that. And then I think I doubled down on movies even more after I found out about Kevin Smith. And I stopped listening to music all around when I started like when I found out about Kevin Smith because he did podcasts. I was like, oh my God, there's a world full of podcasts now. I didn't know that. And then, so I got really into podcasting and stuff like that. So I stopped music altogether until I met my ex. And she kind of like shoved me back into the music world. She literally just pushed me back in there. It's like, this is what I like. And then like, come to all my recitals. Here we play this song, that song. Like, okay, sure. Whatever you say, because I love you so much. Whatever you say, I'll do it. I don't care. So like for me, and I think the big thing for me that really changed that I've gone full music over movies was for one weekend I went up to New York. I was in Kevin Smith's show Comic Book Men, and I saw Brendan Urie on Broadway. And then
Oh,
I flew down. That was awesome, by the way. I flew down to Orlando, saw All Time Low live, and I got on stage with them.
what?
Yeah, because I did the Q&A meet and greet and stuff like that, and I was saying, oh my God, this sounds so good, and all stuff like yeah, can I go up and play with you guys? And like, oh, we don't know, which like fair enough. I was like, yeah, I don't blame you, but like whatever, they're choosing people for Time Bomb for like one of their songs to come up and sing and dance and like play with them and stuff like that. So I was like, at the last second, like Alex Gaspar, the lead singer, looks at me, he's like, I need him to come on this stage. I was like, oh my God, I even getting goosebumps now thinking about it because I'm like, oh my God, because it was such a surreal experience. I found the clip on YouTube. I was like, oh my God, I started crying. I'm like, he needed me to go on stage. So I got on stage and we started dancing. I started singing. And I looked out of the crowd. I'm like, yeah, no, this is what I'm doing. This is exactly where I need to be. This is exactly what I want to do. Because I'm like, this is insane. This is like the feeling of being on stage, seeing a crowd full of people dancing, screaming, and singing along. It's just massive. Like that's like to me, I was like, oh my god, this is it. This is it. And I got a pick from them. And then on the way, I had to fly to Miami the next day to see Guns N' Roses. I couldn't go on the plane for some reason. Or no, I got there half an hour early. Or no, my bad, an hour and a half early. They was like, you can go on, but your bag can't go on. I'm like, why? Too many bags are on the plane. I'm like, I need my stuff. So I took a Greyhound back. The Greyhound broke down halfway there.
Oh my God.
I took a train back because they're like, oh, we'll give you a train ride. So I was there sitting on the train and I'm looking out at like the trees and the cities and like everything as I'm passing by them, looking at the little pic that I got from the night before, and just thinking like, this is like, I can't imagine doing anything else in my life right now. Movies, nobody wants to make a movie with me. Everybody wants to be the main person making it. No, like there was no way I was going to be able to tell those stories. But being able to stand on a stage, whether it be with a guitar or with a group of friends behind you, there is an opportunity to tell those stories and have people listen and have people kind of care for once about the words you're saying and like the stories you tell and like stories about me that hopefully another person can listen to, be like, oh my god, that's who I relate to, that's who I am, like that's how I will handle this situation. So
Yeah.
for me, that was the change, being able to go on stage with All Time Low and see Guns N' Roses and like do all this stuff. I was like, wow, it's crazy for me. Like that weekend, and now that I got to see Guns N' Roses with one of my buddies, and my ex showed up. I'm like, oh wow, this is full circle for me. So I'm
It
like,
must have been such an eventful week.
yeah, it was. It was awesome. It was one of the best weeks of my life and life changing because that's where I got to be today.
Right. And so with the performance, like what was your favorite moment from your first performance? Like from your first ever performance?
So it's funny. So I go to the open mic and surprisingly a bunch of my friends are there. It wasn't planned, it was just happening. So they're excited to see me and stuff like that. And then this one kid goes up and he does really good. I'm like, wow, I feel really bad for the guy that goes after him. They say my name. I was like, so whatever, I go on stage and I start putting my headphones on so I can listen to the song as I as I play. And the guy's like, the sound guy's like, are you sure you shouldn't really do that? I'm like, he's like, you sure you want to do this? Like, oh yeah, I'll be fine. So because I don't know any better. It's my first pro. I don't know better. So whatever, I put the headphones on and I start playing the song. It's Still Breathing by Green Day. That's the song I play. That's
Oh my God, I love that song.
right. That song literally changed my life because it came to me like at the worst, at probably the lowest moment in my life, and really like changed. I was like, oh, okay, things will be okay, things will be good. So I figured that would be a good first song to do. So I did it and people were clapping, they were singing along. I'm sure they felt bad because they're like, oh my god, he's doing really bad up there. But they're still like clapping and singing along and all stuff. I'm like, wow. Like to me, that was the best part, having that audience interaction and
Yeah.
like them listen and sing and just be a part of it, just experience it. I was like, wow, man, that really like fills me up. Like I still get goosebumps because I always say that's probably one of my best and worst performances ever. Worst because like the performance itself wasn't the best, but the feeling itself was just amazing.
Yeah. It's always like the crowd's reaction and just the way that I don't even know how to describe it because as a musician myself, it's like it's a world an otherworld feeling.
Yeah, it is.
Otherworldly. And it's just like you look around, people are actually interacting with you, people are crying, maybe.
Yeah, like it's funny. Like I think when I did the first Nick and Friends show, I had one of my. There wasn't that big of come out, but there's still like a lot of people that showed up. And one of the artists that was on it, she brought her best friend with her, and she was like sitting front row.
Yeah.
I started with the first song because the first song will usually be the first song I wrote. And like I was looking at her, she ran off to the back. I'm like, wow, I must be that bad. I come down the stage. I'm like, I asked her friend, I'm like the artist, like, hey, is your friend okay? She's like, yeah, after that first song, she kind of had an emotional breakdown because it had such a strong connection to her. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know whether to feel really amazing about this or feel really bad. I caused an emotional breakdown. It's like, yes, I have the power, but I'm still like, oh, I feel so sorry. I made her cry.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that weird line you walk. So it's like, it's super cool. It's like, because you never, that's why I dreamt about that. Like, yeah, it'll be cool to get like a lot of money. It'll be cool to be rich and famous. But for me, like, anytime I get something like that, I feel like I won the lottery. I feel like I got $1 million in my pocket. Like to me, that's the best feeling in the world that I don't think money can ever buy, or like anything can ever like replace that feeling that like you made that connection with someone.
I completely agree. Yeah,
So I think that's my favorite part of performance. And that was my favorite part of the first performance, of like people being like, oh my God, you did amazing. Oh my God, this was awesome. Blah, 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 blah. Which is weird because I never really got that much support in my life before. So having this group of people being like, oh my God, you're great. I'm like, oh my God, I feel love. That's awesome. Like
yeah.
to me that was everything.
And so this is the last question. What do you
Okay.
want to say as Nicholas Rodriguez-Fernandez to your supporters?
To my supporters,
Yeah, to like your followers, fans, anything.
thank you for sticking around and thank you for listening. Honestly, like I get so surprised when I see like when I check like the analytics, I see people from like Belfast, people from Germany, people from, well, I guess Belfast is in Germany, but like people from places that I don't even know, that I've never even visited, are like listening. I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome. And know that no matter what, they're not alone because I'm here too. And I'm still gonna write songs about like the stories of my life and what's making me sad and happy. And just thank you. And I'm always gonna be there for you the same way they've always been there for me. So I
It's really
think I'd
touching.
say thank you. And
Well,
thank you so much for this, man. This is awesome.
yeah, you definitely brought out a fan in me. I really connect with you, and it's just very amazing to see artists that don't really look at the end goal. They kind of just see like what's happening right now, like with um I don't know, like the reactions you get from the crowd and just in general, like what's happening in the moment.
Yeah, like I tend to never know, like I get scared about the future a lot now because like, oh my God, it's the future. Like, what if I mess up? It's more so like you never really know what's gonna happen. Because a couple of years before, I thought I was gonna be doing movies for the rest of my life, and here I am now doing music for the rest
Yeah.
of my life. Like you never really know what's gonna happen. So I tend to just enjoy the moment now more so than ever. Like yeah, I hope one day I could do a big show like an arena or something like that. Like, yeah, I'm sure every musician, like you, like you're one as well. I'm sure like that's also like a thing for you. It's like, oh my God, wouldn't that be awesome to play like an arena or like something like that? But for me, like when I get those reactions and when I see those people like connecting to those songs, to me, I feel like I'm playing like Wembley Stadium. To me, that's everything. Like I absolutely like love that so much.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, I'm doing something right. It solidifies in me now something right. So yeah, man,
Well,
that I really think this has been a real
Nick,
awesome
thank you so
experience.
much for this interview. Possibly, I wouldn't say it's like the best interview because I gotta have respect for everybody else that's gonna come before you. But for me, holy shit, you're pretty cool. um, so thank
Thank
you
you.
for your time. And yeah, this has been Youth Havens. I'm pretty sure it's the Weekly Prodigy. I don't think it is. I don't know. I might start a podcast. Do you think we should start a podcast? Let me know in the comments down below. Anything. And yes, thank you especially Nick for everything.
Of course, thank you, and definitely start that podcast. I would love to listen to more stories, like you talk to people and stuff like that. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys and subscribe and subscribe down below. Okay, cool.